It's the Friday edition of Studio 12, coming to you from a wet south end zone of Kyle Field. Matt Simon, Will Johnson with you. We got Mikado Hinson, as we said, our Director of Football Player Development. How's things going, man?
Going great, going great. Contrary to popular opinion and belief right now, things are going well. And they're just showing a lot of grit, a lot of fight. Great week of practice. The guys are excited. Attitude's been very, very positive. So things are going very well.
Yeah, I think Coach, I thought he phrased it so well in the press conference as he was talking on Tuesday, because he's like, we met. They have the accountability council. They have players that they communicate with. Obviously, you do a lot of talking with the kids as well.
I was in that meeting.
Yeah, and he said the word really was frustrated, and he said it's great. He said, I want to see that. I expect to see that from fans. We are frustrated. The players are frustrated. But he said, but we're also 5-2. We're not 2-5. And so talk a little bit about that, and talk about dealing with adversity and having to kind of deal with the tough times, because it's not always fun and sunshine and roses.
That's right. And, you don't want to compare your teams to other teams around the country, and some have it a lot worse than what we have going right now. I promise you that. But he did mention the word frustrating. And for those who, I don't want to give a history lesson, but the term frustration it's a military term. When cargo on a ship, there was a weight more on one side than the other, and it says that load was frustrated. It was a frustrated load, and so just out of balance a little bit. Just the weight had shifted a little bit, and what you got to do is you got to bring some balance back to it. And so that's what's happened this week in practice. That's what's happened in all the team meetings. I was in the accountability council meeting, and it wasn't a rip each other session. It wasn't the ship is sinking. It was, just like car gets out of alignment a little bit, you got to get it aligned. And so the adversity can be healthy to a team. It's one of those things. If it's ease, comfort, and pleasure the entire time, then it's one of those deals that, how are you going to react when you get hit in the mouth? And so we've gotten hit in the mouth, and we've gotten hit with a body shot, and you reel a little bit. You kind of stagger a little bit. But if you can regroup, you can catch your second wind, and leadership steps up. Because that's what it all boils down to, just, calming down and reassessing where we are. And the great thing is that we have a great fan base, but they let it be known, when they're not happy and things like that, and that's okay. But we're going to keep fighting, I promise you. Things are behind the scenes are going really well.
And for me, as somebody that watches these guys a lot, I'm excited to watch them play tomorrow in an environment where, things aren't going as well due to the 2-game losing streak, inclement weather. I'm excited to watch their response. And part of me, knowing some of these guys that I watch so much, they're probably excited to get out there and play and prove and put the 2-game losing streak away. Just the excitement to play, I feel like will be in abundance tomorrow.
Right, and I don't think we're going out there to play to prove anyone wrong. I think we're going out there to play to prove the ones who believe in us right. And so we trust in Coach Sumlin's vision and his direction for this program. And this isn't just coach talk. This is real. I mean, these young men have bought in. They're all in. There's no division. There's no backbiting and backstabbing and things like that. I mean, I would be able to see that. And that is definitely not happening. The guys are responding well in practice and in meetings. And so you're right. Inclement weather. I'm sure the Aggies are still going to come out in full force, even with 11 a.m. kickoff.
Yeah.
But, it's going to rain on the other team too. It's going to be wet for them too. I don't think it's going to get super dry when they take the field, and it just pours when we're on the field. So everyone's going to be affected by the weather. But that's okay. That's why you wear cleats, and that's why you practice in all types of environments, because it's not always going to be perfect for you in every situation. But just like you said, Will, you're excited to see the team play. I promise you, I'm excited to see these guys play tomorrow. I tell them every week I'm your biggest cheerleader, literally, and it's my goal to lose my voice on the sideline, not yelling at people, but yelling in support for the team every week.
Yeah, and I watch so many of these guys and talk to them, and I think there's actually some really good people that are able to block out anything that is outside the walls. I think this team does a good job of not letting anything from the outside infiltrate the inside and divide them through there.
Absolutely, and that just kind of it trickles down from the head. I'm just going to be I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It trickles down from the head, and the head of our football program is Kevin Sumlin, and talks about just being able to block out those outside influences, those outside, people are going to praise you when you're up and they're going to kick you when you're down. And it's a short walk from the penthouse to the outhouse, really. And so as long as we believe in the vision for this program and where this football family is headed, then that's all that really matters. And, with social media, you've given everyone basically access to you. They can tweet at someone, they can send a direct message to someone, and next thing you know, it starts running like wildfire. And it's some dude just sitting, at a computer or behind his desk and trying to stir up controversy and things like that. And you know what? Coach does a really good job of helping block those things out and really just keeping the main thing, and that is going 1-0 this weekend against South Carolina.
And, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's unbelievably hard, even for, me as a 39-year-old to block that stuff out. For those kids to learn that, and it's hard, and they're not going to be able to block out every time, but they're trying as hard as they can to do it. What a life lesson as you go through life and you grow. I mean, these are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids having to block out. I'm sure it was difficult to block out external factors in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's got to be unbelievably more difficult now with all the social media and, like you said, the instant access.
Absolutely, and anyone, anywhere across the world can reach you in a split second. And so you have to be disciplined, and you have to be able to have some safeguards in your life, like some of the guys who've just jumped completely off of social media and said, you know what, I don't need that distraction. I don't want to hear that. Whether it be the positive or the negative. Because, again, if people praise you too much, then you start thinking more highly of yourself than you ought. And then if people start kicking you when you're down, you just start thinking you're just a piece of whatever. But and so you just got to be able to stay middle of the road. And unfortunately, social media, which we're all involved in, right? It gives everybody access to be able to talk to someone instantly. Now, whether that person responds or things like that, but they may scroll through and read it, and you say, "Oh, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me." But if it makes you think twice about that tweet that came through at you, then you're thinking about it maybe a little bit more than you should.
And recently, there's some folks that have heard about this, and if you watch our program, The Pulse, here at 12th Man Productions, you actually got to get a little first-hand look at you often are instrumental in bringing in some people that are good guidance for our players. I think of Troy Vincent visited, I think it was during the offseason, Maurice Claret, who has gone through some difficulty in his life after football, spoke to the team on ways to handle yourself and had a good message. The most recent one was Brian Dawkins.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I'm talking about with the Pulse. I think people got to see him spend some time with the team. And that was Mississippi State week,
yes,
if
sir.
we go back for a little while. For those that didn't get to see the Brian Dawkins influence, from what I saw of it, I thought it was incredible. The guys who talked to him came away with just a glowing message from him. Can you just talk about that, getting some guys in here who are really good guidance for our players as they move on in their careers at A&M, but even after Texas A&M?
Absolutely. One of the things that I'm passionate about is reaching out to people that have achieved a lot on a high level that our young men can relate to athletically, but also as a man. And so you mentioned Maurice. I had been following him for a while now, just about some of his speaking engagements and things like that. So I'm researching all these guys. And so Brian, I used to show his motivational clips when I was at the University of Houston. I used to show those to the team and to FCA and things like that about someone who carried themselves with a lot of class, a lot of dignity, who walked the walk and talked the talk, but when they put their helmet on, they played at a high level with a lot of passion, and they showed that you can do the two. You can couple the two together. And so it was my goal. I have a wish list on my desk of different speakers that I still want to bring in. But Brian was on that list. Maurice Claret, Troy Vincent, they were on that list. And so when Brian and he came, and there was an instant connection the first time he came in July. And he said, "I need to come back." I said, "We want you back." And the guys connected with him. He just made himself available to speak to the guys, whether in a team setting, individual setting. He was there just to provide advice and counsel and encouragement. They all knew who he is, by watching him on ESPN now, but also by his playing days, 16 years in the NFL. And so I just reached out to see if he'd be willing to come. And it was a team effort now. It was myself, Coach Sumlin, Gary Reynolds, and Justin Moore in a room, and said, who are some men that we want to bring in to speak to our team? And I told them it was a dream to bring in Brian Dawkins. Well, Gary Reynolds had to connect with someone who coached him. And so Gary reached out to that person. In 5 minutes, we had Brian's number. And 10 minutes later, I called and left Brian a voicemail. I'm going to give these guys an opportunity to tell me no. And that means I'm going to ask them to come. If I don't ask them, they've already told me no. And so reached out to Brian. He said, I'd love to come. He came in, and he said, I need to come back. The next time he came back from Mississippi State, I said, hey, we'll fly you in Friday, let you be around the team, speak to the team at chapel, things like that. He said, no, I need to be around the guys. And so he came in a few days before on a Wednesday and just made himself available and was in my office a lot. And when guys would come talk, I'd take a walk and things like that. So he just provided a lot of counsel and insight and things like that with our young men. So those things like that are just invaluable. You can't put a price tag on them.
And I bet it's a fun side effect for you. I mean, I bet Brian Dawkins gets as much out of it as the A&M program does. I've heard he loved it.
I will tell you this, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this because he's passionate. He was in tears in the coach's locker room when it was time to leave. He said, I've only been here a few days and I've connected with these guys, and teared up. I think we helped fill a locker room void for him that he had so long in his career, and he fulfills something for us as well, to be able to be a resource to our young men. And so the gear that we gave him and things like that, he left it with me. And because I gave him a duffel bag and said, here's for take this home with you. He said, no, this will be for next time when I come back. I said, that means you're coming back. He's like, oh, I'm coming back. And so he's really adopted us as his team. We've adopted him. And again, it's just it's a great partnership, and just excited for him to be a part of what we're doing.
Mikado, again, the opportunity. Coach always talks about going 1-0 this week, and I know you just mentioned that as well. The opportunity to get back out on the field, they're so precious, and it's easy maybe to overlook. I'm not saying this weekend, but it's easy maybe for casual fan or somebody just kind of overlook a certain opponent. But these opportunities that these kids get to take the field really are special because there aren't a lot of them over your career.
They're precious. They really are. People say you never know when your last game's going to be. And that is it's a truism of life, for these guys who are playing this game. And then for the seniors, that time flies by. Next thing you know, they're thinking, man, I just remember when I was an incoming freshman and I had all these games to play. Well, now you're down to single digits. And for some guys, it'll be the last time they ever play organized football again. Some will have aspirations and dreams of playing professionally, and some won't have that opportunity. But it's coming down to the end. So every time you have the opportunity to take the field and play a great game with some great men, with some great coaches, you better don't take that for granted.
Yeah. And we talked a little while ago for an article we had in the game program earlier this year. And you said some great things to me as part of your message to our players that you send to them often. One of the things you mentioned is that football, in some way in their future, it will let you down. Now, what that means, it won't always be there.
Right.
That's not going to be the rest of your life. And we talk about games, winning, preparing for South Carolina, going 1-0. But your message is really big picture to our guys, and you're very interested in, like you mentioned to me, the man they will be after A&M, the husband and the father, and the brother, the son, and the community leader. You're very interested in that part of it, the big picture when they're done with A&M.
Absolutely. Football is a slice of who they are and what they do right now in this season of life. But there's a bigger picture. There's a lot more going on in their life than football. You think of the number of hours that you have with them each week for football versus the number of hours they have to live as a man. It's definitely that balance. It's imbalance. I mean, there's a lot more with the helmet off their head than there is on. And so, that's the message. That's the picture that I want to present to them is that, yes, you want to be the best football player that you've been gifted to be. But on top of that, be the best man. They go hand in hand. They're you don't unplug one and then plug in the other. They're plugged in at the same time. Because the type of man that you are oftentimes reveals the type of football player you are. That's not all the time, and we see that. You can see that on TV any given Sunday, Saturday, whatever, in whatever sport you choose. But most of the time, they go hand in hand. I kind of give the guys this visual. John Gordon talks about it in his book, Training Camp, having the telescope and microscope mentality. If you want to see where you're going, you look through a telescope because it'll show you far away, far down the road. But you can't live in the telescope. That's not going to get you there. You got to get in the microscope and see what little intricate details am I going to have to make sure that I have in place in my life. What little things am I going to have to do as a man to help me become a successful husband, a successful father, successful in my community, and also successful on the football field and in the classroom. And so I tell them, don't look in the telescope too long. You want to see what your future looks like, look at it. But then get out of it and get in the microscope and start working on all those little details that are going to help you achieve that. People along the way who've helped you, high school coaches, people who've corrected you, things like that. Don't get mad when people correct you. Don't get mad when they criticize you. You look at those as opportunities for growth. And so I think that something that has kind of been lost in this day is anytime someone corrects you, they're attacking you. And that's not the case. That is just something that people are doing to help build you up. Because I'll tell you, if my son, when he was younger, we were playing ball in the front yard and he runs out into the middle of the street, I'm not going to just whisper to him or gently say, MJ, you might want to get out of the middle of the street because cars are coming. I'm going to scream at him.
Yeah.
And it's not me yelling at him because I'm mad at him and hate him. I love him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to protect him.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to scream at him, get out of the street.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, that might alert him a little bit. And so, but some people, when you yell at them a little bit, they take it personally. And it's like, no, this is a coaching moment. Man, dude, get in the microscope. And in the microscope is different coaching opportunities, people who are going to push you, and people are going to correct you, and people are going to give you literally a swift kick in the rear when you need it. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can come back and say, thank you. I needed that. That helped me become the man that I am today. And so I give him that whole visual from training camp, telescope versus the microscope, because it's the little things that make a big difference in life. It's rarely the big, huge grand finale firework thing that's going to make a big difference. It's little things stacked on top of little things that's going to make the difference for them.
Yeah, and I think about just the game of football and how it translates to life. I guarantee, and I'm sure it's part of your message, when these guys are 55 years old, they'll do something in their life that their days as a football player, it's helping them with that. What they learned if they bought into the system.
I'm going to tell you what I know.
High school and college days.
Once these guys, they think at an elite level, they never stop thinking at an elite level. That's why a lot of companies want to hire athletes in sales, because it's literally about the competition of making the sale. And so the thought process of, you talk to an athlete who's 55 years old and they're telling their old war stories, right? It's embellished probably by now. You know, they won every game and
ran for 500 yards instead of 200.
All-American status, and they played 3 plays a game. But nonetheless, but for people to play at that high level like that, they think elite. And when football's over, they don't just stop thinking elite. They just carry it on to the next thing. And so that's why a lot of times you'll see athletes who go into business. We just saw Terrence Murphy.
Yeah, he was in
go into
hallways.
business. Yeah, just in the hallway. They go into business and are very successful. Why? Because they still think elite. It's a competition. It's just now off the field in a different arena of life.
Very well said.
I wanted to ask you just real quick before you go. I know you're not going to be donning one tomorrow, but how sweet do those black unis look? How excited do you think the kids are? I'm excited. I'm not even going to get to wear one.
I tell you what, the guys are fired up. I think the only thing that would have made them more fired up is if it were a night game and those helmets, when people were taking pictures, it could reflect the logo. But the guys are excited. You know, sometimes people say, "Oh, the bells and the whistles." That gets the guys excited. It doesn't change the game. It doesn't change the brand or the product. I think everyone should get behind that and support that. They say it's going to be a blackout. Well, we hope it's a blackout, shutout, sellout, all those types of things.
All the
right?
outs.
All those outs. And hopefully at the end of the day, we can ball out.
Exactly. Well, now this one isn't as a surprise, obviously, but Will and I were lucky enough to be in the locker room in Mississippi State 3 years ago when they actually unveiled the only other time the team's worn black, and they had no idea it was coming.
Oh, wow.
And that
was good stuff.
You want to talk about those guys getting fired up. And I saw them walk out on the field. I go, we are going to trash this team today.
Yeah, I've seen that with other teams that I've been with, too. You surprise them like that, and it's just their adrenaline goes through the roof, and their play goes up another notch. Let's just hope that even though they've known about this for months, it's the same result tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
I'm in.
Excited about it.
The good thing about the 11 a.m. kickoff, Might be able to get home in time for some trick or treating with the kids. You got big plans for Halloween, the family?
I would
like
imagine
that?
my son is going to connect with a couple friends in the neighborhood, and I'm going to give him my advice of when I was young: take a pillowcase. And don't take a little pumpkin head. Don't take a little bag.
Load that
I said,
thing up.
dude, man, you
Go
can get a
big.
pillowcase and
Go
fill that
big.
bad boy up. But
And Dad will help you eat the candy when you get home.
Dad will definitely. I'm searching through the candy to find things. Yeah, son, you can have all the different nougat bars and almond joys, and
Yeah.
I don't want those, son. But you get some Rolos and some Snickers, and Dad might confiscate a few of those just for safety purposes.
Exactly.
There
Pure
you go.
safety.
There you go. Well, good stuff. Well, we appreciate the time. All the best tomorrow, rest of the season. 11 a.m. kickoff against South Carolina. Good luck to you and the Aggies. Thanks for the time, Mikado.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the time.